We are going to take a few moments and talk about the naming of parallel lines in a rectangle or any other kind of polygon shape. So we'll start with going into our drawing, and again we are talking about parallel lines. Parallel lines, if you remember, are lines that never cross on the same plane. If you extend these out a long, long time, they will never cross. Think about railroad tracks. Think about lines on a road. They never cross. If a railroad track does cross, you have some problems. Train derails. So parallel lines. So we have a rectangle here, and let's call it rectangle E, F, G, H. And we know that those are points on our rectangle that we have labeled, and we have a rectangle EFGH. We know from our rules that the opposite sides, which I'm just going to go ahead and highlight in yellow, the opposite sides of a rectangle are parallel. So as we look at this, and this is very important, these steps are very important. So we're going to, on our sheet here, we're going to label EF is parallel to GH. So again, EF is parallel to GH. There are two different markings that we need to include in this. I'm going to go with blue. The first one is just a symbol on the rectangle itself to show that the opposite sides are parallel. And that symbol is this little arrow like this. And you'll notice the arrows are matching. They're in the same place across from each other, and those signify that we have parallel lines across from each other. To name these, to label these, we need to identify the lines, use the correct symbol to signify their relationship. So in this example, I'm going to continue with the blue. We have, as we mentioned a couple times, we have line segment EF. Well, to write that in simple terms, EF with the line over it. Notice that it's the E and the F, and the line across the top is signifying that it is a line segment. The other line segment that it is parallel to, as we have talked about, is GH. To label that, it is line segment GH. It is not done until I have the line across the top. This is now labeled GH. It is now a line segment, and it shows that from the line across the top. The last bit to show that these are parallel, which we know from the arrows that we drew earlier, is our symbol in between. Now, as we read this, which I'm going to change color back to yellow, as we read this, we have line segment EF is parallel to line segment GH. To review, we have the symbols that show that is true. Line segment EF is parallel to line segment GH. And then we also have the label of the naming to show that EF, line segment EF, is parallel to line segment GH. One last point of note, I do want to point out that in this EFGH, this rectangle EFGH, there are two sets of parallel lines. Two sets. We have been talking primarily about EF being parallel to GH, but if you notice, and I'll use green for this, if you'll notice EG is also parallel to FH. We would use the same naming techniques. We would say EG is parallel to FH. And to label these in the rectangle itself, We can't use just one arrow because one arrow has been taken up by our first set of parallel lines. To label these on the rectangle with the arrows, we would actually use 2 arrows. So with these 2 arrows, that is showing that EG is parallel to FH. Thank you, and I hope this helps.